Hello everyone, it's me Nima and I'm back again with another video, and today I'm going to give you my review and thoughts on Hogwarts Legacy. Now Hogwarts Legacy is one of the most anticipated game releases of the year, but it's also been one of the most controversial as well, especially around the controversy around the author J.K. Rowling and her views on transgender views and how it goes against the transgender community. I've done a video kind of talking about it, and I'm not going to really explain it too much in this video, but today I've got the game and I'm going to give you my thoughts and impressions of it. Now, I've only played about 8 hours of this game so far since its release, so it may not be very representative of many other reviewers who have played more hours of this game or even completed the game, but it's definitely enough time for me to give my thoughts and impressions of it. And overall, I have definitely really enjoyed this game, although there is definitely some aspects of this game that I particularly don't like so much, and certainly there are aspects that I do need talking about, because certainly the reviews of this game so far have definitely set a new benchmark of putting this game up there as like game of the year, a work of art, and putting it up as one of the greatest games of all time, which I don't typically agree fully, but it is definitely a really fun fantasy RPG game, and it's certainly one that I could overall recommend to you. But yeah, let me speak about some of the things that I do like about this game. Firstly, when you do start this game, you do get a lot of customizations for your character, and that for me is definitely very good for anyone that really wants to create their own wizard, witch type character, or anyone that kind of fits within someone that they want to try and recreate or even create themselves. So it definitely does give you a lot of options to really create your own character, to really embark on this whole wizarding journey and this whole Harry Potter lore. Now, the only things that you really can't change in terms of your character customization is really the age of your character, or you can't really like change the body type or body size of your character. Now, the age factor comes into the whole story of the game, because you start out as a fifth year Hogwarts student, so you are kind of forced to kind of pick the age of your character by default. It's not really changeable really, because of the how story of the Hogwarts Legacy game goes is that you do start as a fifth year student. Now I'm going to try my hardest not to give spoilers on this game, but I felt the beginning of the game was pretty lackluster. So you get into a tense start of the game of where you introduce your character to one of the professors, and you're basically getting into a very sticky situation of what happens, and you're trying to find a way of getting into Hogwarts. Now, when you get to Hogwarts, you, as a fifth year student, you're not assigned to what house you're in within Hogwarts, so you could pick between the four houses, and within that beginning of the game you kind of settled in with some of the other students, and you do quests that involve around going to the other professors to do assignments. And throughout that beginning, in the 2 hours or so I played, it was pretty tedious, and you don't really get into much battles or fights that really happen during that period, so I felt the beginning felt very lackluster. Now, most of the time that I've spent playing this game, you do spend most of your time in Hogwarts, and definitely Hogwarts itself, they definitely get the attention to detail very, very well. Hogwarts is massive. There's so many corridors and rooms to explore around Hogwarts, with the characters as well kind of interacting with each other as well, and they really do get the dynamic lore of Hogwarts very well. So they have statues and paintings that interact dynamically. There's also ghosts that wander around. So I definitely think the best aspect of the game playing so far was definitely Hogwarts itself, because they definitely get the atmosphere to a T of how it looks in the movies. Now, despite all of Hogwarts looking good and they create the atmosphere very well like the movies, sadly it doesn't really perform very well. Now, the game itself, the way it performs, it definitely runs with a few frame drops. There's also lots of popping as well. So, times I get around some of the staircases in Hogwarts, I pretty much get through situations where there's lots of stutter, so the frame just drops drastically, and you're kind of left with like some sort of lag in the game. Also, the times when you go between doors as well, you run through loading times as well. And even the times where you go in between corridors, around the corners, around bridges and stuff, there's also times where characters and some graphics will just pop in, and some of the lighting effects just pop in as well. So the game itself, although atmospherically looks really good, it doesn't perform very well, and it does hurt kind of the gameplay of itself, because those things do take aspects of how it affects the overall game itself when you are playing. Now, I want to touch on to the combat features of this game. So, when you get involved into some encounters with enemies or opponents, for example, they will have different abilities. So, some abilities they will have is different colored shields, and sometimes you would have to break those shields by matching the color of the spells that you have within the spells you have learned. So, throughout the game, you do quests and you will learn different spells, and you unlock spells when you progress throughout the game. So, for instance, one example is like if you're facing like other students or different sort of enemies throughout Hogwarts Legacy, they would have different shield colors. So some will have a yellow shield color to a blue shield color, and some of the spells that you unlock will have a specific colored shield. And you would use those spells to break shields and try and sort of defeat the enemies. So it definitely does challenge you to kind of think strategically of how you will come across the enemies in the game. And the combat itself is not tacky, it's definitely responsive. So it's pretty easy to lock on enemies, it's easy to use some of the basic combat of using spells to lock onto them and kill them. So it doesn't feel tacky or unresponsive. It is definitely rewarding, and it was probably one of my favorite features of playing this game. Now, I haven't played so much to really make this sort of point to come across yet, but one of the things I definitely heard from a lot of the reviews is the lack of enemy variety. Now, I've played probably about 8 hours of it, so I can't really make that statement yet, but I've certainly come across a different variety of enemies, such as different wizards, to wolves, spiders, knights. So I haven't really sort of come across that point of view yet. There is definitely some variety in some of the enemies that I have encountered. It would sort of depend on how much time I play throughout this game to sort of see whether the variety of the enemies that you come across are really that interesting, or in any ways somehow there it is pretty lackluster. But so far throughout the game, I could definitely say that I have come across a different variety, and it didn't really somewhat bore me. I mean, I could say one thing that maybe some of the attacks that they kind of give off is kind of very tedious. So most of the enemies you come across will apply some of the same sort of combat modes and blocks, really. So maybe that was maybe one aspect that the variety wasn't really that interesting, based on the ability of the enemies that you come up against and how maybe you might defeat them in any way. But who knows? It would still depend on how much time I play this game to really sort of see how the variety of the enemies you come up against would kind of be too tedious, or if it's just different enemies just with the same sort of combat features. But yeah, overall, I've found this game a lot of fun to play. When you get past the first 2-3 hours of this game, where you're just in Hogwarts trying to do some of the boring assignment quests, when you get outside of Hogwarts and explore more of the world map, and you explore the different atmosphere around the map, then it's definitely a lot of fun. And some of the gameplay features, the combat features, the encounters of the enemies you do come across, I did actually enjoy. But yeah, the only things that do hurt this game is definitely most prominently is the performance of this game. Graphically, the game does look good, but how it performs is not good, and sometimes it does hurt the overall gameplay of the game. And Whether or not there is a lack of enemies that in variety when coming across completing this game, that's just down for what I say. But I'm giving a review based on what I think of it just as of now. But yeah, overall, this game I will definitely give it an 8.5 out of 10. I think the things that really I couldn't give it like a 9 or a 10 would be the fact that the beginning of the game, some of the quests are not as fun and they become too tedious over time. And certainly the performance the game runs graphically is a bit of a damning effect of the game overall. But apart from all of those sort of cons I have, there is a lot of pros for it. I definitely think the world of Hogwarts looks really good. The gameplay itself is good. The combat is good. And overall, this is a great fantasy RPG. So whether you're a fan of Harry Potter or you're not a fan of Harry Potter but you like fantasy RPG games, I mean, this is definitely one that I could definitely recommend. And yeah, that's about it. See you later.